Hi, this is Sauce123 for FlopTurnRiver, and this is going to be my first video for F.T.R. I'm playing some 126 max, and I've actually been at these tables for about half an hour or so, so I've developed some reads. And have a decent idea of how some of my opponents play. I'm going to be playing 1-2 just because I feel like it's going to be analogous to a lot of situations you're going to see in almost every limit. So for our posters who are playing mid-stakes, there's going to be a lot of players who play mid-stakes these tables, and there's also going to be some guys just taking a shot, cashing in, $100 or so and seeing how they do, who you'll find at any stake. And there's also going to be some solid regulars. But we also can probably find some leaks in their game and try to exploit them. So I booted up my Poker Ace HUD, and as you can see, all I have is VPIP, pre-flop raise, and then number of hands I have with them. If I need more, just double click, and I have some more detailed stats. Pre-flop wise, I'm not gonna play any set strategy particularly, except for the fact that I'm going to play pretty much every hand which I think is going to be profitable for me, and take that for what it's worth. So Villeroy is the guy who I played most with at these tables. I played with him a fair amount at 3-6 no limit, and it's very tight, solid player. So here, full man, limps. Jack-8 is probably ahead of his range, and I'm in position. Easy isolation. And this should set up a profitable continuation bet for us on most flops. Like this one. Dry flop with King-10 high. It's going to miss his range pretty often. I'm going to make a little bit smaller bet than I normally would make, because I have absolutely nothing. And I can also double barrel this turn if I so desire. But a deuce is going to be a bad card. I think he's going to stack off with any 10 here. He's not folding often, and I've been isolating him and raising him pretty often. So I actually just folded to that river thing. I just treated that as a check. Essentially, when he bets $2 there, it's even slightly weaker than a check, I would say. But I can't trust him to fold there. 4-4, this hand's actually playing really passively. I don't expect to get re-raised. I'm actually going to limp here against his stack, as he has 82. And this can draw other players into the pot and get me increased value on my set. You can make a very valid case for raising here as well. But if I can get four-way action with a small pot relative to the stacks, with the opportunity to hit my set, I think that's going to be more profitable. So obviously I should have called the flop, but what can you do? So anyway, on the other table we have Kanoa Style, who I've played with a few times as well. Who my note just says nit. I assume that relates to post flop play. He's not really nit pre-flop, playing 23% of hands. I think he's just open limping a fair amount, which I've been able to take advantage of, and playing pretty weakly post-flop. Okay, so we're not going to defend our big blind with offsuit aces, ever. Deuce 3, just going to open fold, whatever happens. Sixes will probably play with most action. Okay, so this is a good situation. As you can see, this is actually a little closer. Normally, had full man folded, I would probably re-raise here, and I could still re-raise here and get it in against him, but I think it's almost better to call here because we have another multi-way pot where we can hit a set. But that's a very close decision. If we re-raise and the button folds, we're going to get all-in pre-flop or on the flop against the 60-16 player. and be, relatively happy about it. But given that we have sixes, there's going to be a lot of flops where we get in drawing to 2 outs just because the small blind happens to pair, and then it's kind of a bad situation. So just chose to call pre. So I'm going to open King 4 suited in the small blind against a tight big blind. I'm also going to open King 7 from the cutoff against tight big blind. And these are my opening requirements in these spots are more a function of my opponents than of my hand strength. Though I'm not going to be opening hands like 4 deuce offsuit, things like that have absolutely no value. I'm going to be opening a lot of hands because when he does play with me, it's going to be relatively easy to read his hand because he's so tight. He's calling here with 2% of hands, and if he re-raises, we're going to fold. So we can put him on a tight range after the flop and play accordingly. And also, he's just gonna fold so often that it's like should be very profitable. So ace 10, definitely gonna raise it up to 9. Just raising a little more pre-flop to count for the limper. I would raise that anyway, even if there wasn't a limper. But you should widen your opening requirements when there's a poster, because there's extra dead money in the pot, so it's more valuable to win the blinds. So we get called. This is an interesting flop. This is one of those flops where against a tight player like Kanoa, I'm actually going to check behind here. There's a few reasons for that. I can improve my hand because I have an ace kicker, so he can hit second best hands there. I already have a decent made hand which can't stand a check raise, and I can turn the nut flush draw. So I think that's a really good spot to check behind because we're not going to get called by worse all that often. And now I'm going to aim to check it down unless I hit like a 10 or something, or obviously a king. So I'm not going to put any money in the pot if he bets, and it's really, really tempting to bet for value here, but I think this player is tight enough that he's not going to call with worse. And yeah, he had deuces, so we were right. So that's like a really classic spot of when not to continuation bet. One big mistake I see players making is continuation betting too much. And you can be a winner at, pretty much any stakes up to like 5-10, continuation betting like pretty much every time. But you can be more profitable picking some good spots not to continuation bet. And that's one of them. When you have a player who isn't going to be check calling a wide range of hands, is pretty tight post flop, and you have like a medium strength made hand, and especially one like that, another big point favor is the redraws we have. So it's really good for us if he has a hand like, ace 9 or something, ace 9 suited, and we turn ace, and we get like a bunch of bets from him. Things like that. Or like if he has, a good jack, king jack or something. So, and also we can't stand a check raise. So if he check raises us on the draw, we're also playing pot control so that if he has any straight or flush draw and check raises us on that flop, we have to fold because he's relatively tight and threatening our stack. And that's kind of a disaster for us when he has a draw equity-wise. So it's better to check behind and then call turn bets and most river bets. Queen 10 offsuit in the button is pretty easy open against anyone. So we've one caller. This player's, playing a lot of hands. Shouldn't be too worried. Just gonna bet the flop. I usually continuation bet 5-6 to the pot. Personal preference. I like to get a lot of money in there fast, usually. But you can definitely be profitable using. Oh, by the way, King 4 offsuit. Even though we're in the small blind against a very weak limping player, I'm just gonna fold this hand just because it has like no value, and we're just gonna like bet for value wrongly so often with it. Like when we flop a king and we're dominated, things like that. Because against a player like this, I'm gonna be betting for 3 streets of value if I flop a king, and he's gonna be calling down with better half the time because he's not gonna be raising as often. Okay, so queen deuce Definitely not even going to play on the button. Even though both these blinds are very tight, that's actually debatable. You could open close to any two here profitably, I think. But I'm going to shy away from the queen deuce offsuit types of hands. Keep things in check a little bit. 5-4 suited, definitely a good spot to isolate the weak player.